Welcome back to Haunted History Chronicles, where we explore the hidden, the haunted, and the mystical threads woven through our human story. In this special episode, we journey into the luminous heart of ancient Egypt. Joining me is an extraordinary guest. Fotoula is a spiritual teacher, healer, and partner in the Isis School of Holistic Health. Fotoula has spent decades guiding others along the path of the living light, uniting ancient wisdom with modern transformation. Fotoula's new book, Sacred Mysticism of Egypt, The Ancient Path of HEKA Initiation, is an Amazon hot new release. It reveals profound, long-hidden teachings from Egypt's golden times. In our conversation, we'll uncover how the gods and goddesses act as living archetypes, the meaning of HEKA, the universal power of creation, and how initiates once entered the mysteries to awaken divine consciousness within. We'll also explore Fotoula's personal journey, from her miraculous connection with the goddess Isis to her shamanic Greek heritage, and discover how ancient spirituality continues to guide us through today's world. Stay tuned as we lift the veil on forgotten temples, astral connections to Sirius and Orion, and the enduring wisdom that bridges Atlantis, Egypt, and our modern age. This is a journey through light, memory, and mysticism, and one you won't want to miss. Hi, Fotoula. Thank you so much for coming along and being part of the podcast tonight with me. It's so lovely to have you joining me to chat about your book, which we're going to be talking about in this episode.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for inviting me. It's a real honor to be here and a privilege. I love talking about my book, and there is so much to share. And thank you so much for inviting me to your brilliant podcast.
Do you want to begin by maybe introducing yourself to the people listening, sharing a little bit about your background, which is fascinating, and giving an overview of your latest book, which we're going to be talking about, which is Sacred Mysticism of Egypt?
This is quite a difficult question for me every time, trying to summarize myself, because what happens in me, and it might be different to other authors, I have so many different facets. So sometimes some people have like one thing, that's their main thing. And I have many main things, but one of the things that I love is ancient Egypt. And since I was a child, I was fascinated about ancient Egypt and the mysticism of Egypt. I grew up in Greece, and I studied the ancient philosophers as a child because I couldn't find enough material to study ancient Egypt. So I studied what it was there, what was available. And then, of course, life continued. I wanted to study ancient Greek, but life, and my family said, no, you need something more practical that will help you earn a living. So I studied town planning, and that took me into the Sorbonne in Paris. And eventually, I came to Scotland. That I had never planned to do this. But I came to Scotland, and eventually I gave up town planning. What happened was my spiritual path opened up. What I remembered as a child, that I had been very psychic then and very open, as children tend to be, but I was that until about 13. And then, of course, as I said, the mind and the logical mind domineered my thinking. But then, at some point in when I became 30 and thereafter, my spiritual path opened right in front of me, and I started to study what was in my heart, and that was ancient Egypt and shamanism. Shamanism comes from my family also. So another part of me, this other facet, is somebody who is so passionate about the drum, the shamanic ways, the ways of the earth, the spirituality of the earth. And in my family, I inherited a lineage from, as I said, from my father's side, from the Pelion Mountain. So this is also another part of me that I do. And what I really do is I teach spiritual teachings as they come to me. I am a very clear channel as much as I can, being in my heart and sharing the ancient wisdom that I remembered from previous lives, but also I now bring together with the help of enlightened beings for our times now. And this is what my purpose is in my life. It's somebody said to me recently, it's like you're midwifing the people for the higher vibrational era that is coming in the future. And I felt that was quite a good description. But first of all, I'm midwifing myself, because we cannot do this work, we cannot walk this path without doing our personal work, and without we becoming the clear channel and the spiritual being that we are beyond the conditioning of the mind.
In your book, you describe Egypt as this spiritual home, and I think just listening to your brief introduction there as well, you can hear the passion that you have, this connection that you have with Egypt. What is it about Egypt that keeps calling you back, both in this life and as you mentioned there, through past life memory?
What I remember in Egypt was living a very sacred life, a sacred life in the temples, where there was a true communion with the divine for everybody who was there. I remember immersing myself in these teachings and then teaching these mysteries to the people who wanted to study with me. I remember the presence of the enlightened beings, that they were so near, and they are still very, very near. They're not some in the heavens far away. They are so close to us. And I remember that huge opening of the heart through grace. And when I look at the ancient Egyptian temples, when I walk on that land, all this light and love and support and and that love I have for Egypt just floods my body. I feel so at home in the ancient Egyptian temples. I would say that it's, of course, things have changed so much, and modern Egypt is not the same place as it was thousands of years ago, but the temples are still radiating this amazing energy. And the portals of light that the ancients placed there for us are still there and are still open. And also, I have found Egyptian people who live in Egypt, who work in the temples, who are still practicing these ways, even in the system that is now. Of course, nobody can admit that. In their case, they cannot go publicly and say that, but it is still happening. The work is continuing, and it has to do with the evolution of the soul through the power of divine love and divine grace. So that's what I remember. And my link is very, very strong because it was there since childhood. I knew Egypt was my home, and eventually managed to get there for the first time in 2006. And that visit confirmed that for me.
And obviously, you mentioned earlier that you're originally from Greece, and of course, the ancient Greeks built these incredible temples to the Egyptian deities, to Isis in various parts of Greece, as far back as the 5th century BC. Have you ever had the chance to visit any of those temples? And if you have, what can you tell us about those?
Yes, I have had that chance, and I love also the ancient Greek sites, and these old places in Greece are very powerful. It's almost like they you can feel the vibration of Greece is one, what's happening in the cities and places. But when you go to the ancient sites, it's a completely different vibration. There is so much light there. And one of the places I really wanted to go for a long time was the island of Delos. Now, Delos is the birthplace of Apollon and Artemis, the sun and the moon. So Apollon being the sun, Artemis, the moon, and the masculine and the feminine is a wonderful place. Nobody's allowed to live there. So it's the whole island is an archaeological site, and nobody can stay there. You just go by boat, visit the site, and then you have to go back to another place, another island, for the night. So the energy is still very, very pure. And on that island, the best preserved temple is the temple of the goddess Isis. So when you go into that temple, I really, of course, wanted to go there. And the first time I went, it wasn't possible. You could look at it from the outside, but the energy was still coming through and meeting me. The second time I went, it was possible to go inside. And I went inside, and the energy was really there too. Now, of course, the vibration is different. We are on a different land, but the vibration of the Isis work, of the ancient Egyptian work, is all about awakening, is the resurrection myths that they talk about, how we have been dismembered through life, like Osiris. And then we have been put together through Isis, through this power of the sacred feminine. And so this power is one of awakening, awareness, and eventually enlightenment, becoming the enlightened being, what they call Sahu. So when I went there, I felt as if in this part of Greece, those teachings had been practiced there too. Now, of course, on this island, the temples are much smaller. Is the whole of the island is a huge temple complex. There are so many temples, just like one after another, because it was a sacred island, as I said, the birthplace of Apollo and Artemis for the ancient Greeks. So the ancient Greeks said this is a very holy place, and therefore every uh, god and goddess from ancient Greece to the Egyptian gods, they are there. They are there, all coexisting together, because the ancient Greeks were like, they were saying, it's not just one god we need to focus on. We are so unique as human beings, and therefore each one of us needs different things. So everything, the divine has so many aspects as well. It's not just one, but co-creating together with all these different powers, we can create something so much more helpful to us. So they were open to a lot of the deities of their world and the ancient Egyptian mysticism.
So, if we just kind of take a look at your book, maybe you could help the listeners a little bit, because obviously you speak about in the book the first era of human history, this golden time, which is also echoed in Sanskrit. How did the ancient Egyptian mystics kind of describe this age? Do you want to just kind of elaborate on that for the listeners to help them understand of how that was kind of described? Because obviously we can then learn from that. You know, it tells us a lot, I think, for today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And when we know that we were these enlightened beings in a body ourselves, when we know that as human beings we were incredibly connected, incredibly wise, and that we had all these other abilities to self-heal, to create energy from the universal energy of that exists everywhere, to the psychic abilities that some people have, where everybody had that. We communicated telepathically with ourselves and with all life. We didn't need the internet. We communicated mind to mind. That we had this incredible consciousness that enabled us to live in a state of joy and grace. And we live to serve life, not to take from the earth, but to serve life here for every being. Then I think we can see that and we can say there is hope that we can go back to that because we have already lived through that phase, that golden time in our history. And these powers, if you like, or these abilities that we had then still exist within us. So the golden times is what the ancient Egyptians call the golden times Zep Tepi, which means the first time, the first era. And they say that this was a time when human beings were like gods on earth, not from the point of view of the ego, but from the point of view of the consciousness, that we had this very high consciousness. And when we have that consciousness, miracles are commonplace, but they are miracles happen not because we want something or we have desire, but because we are in the flow of life, and it's always for the highest good. So the energy of this time is very sacred. And sometimes people ask me, how can I tap into that? If we tap into that with desire, we cannot do it. It's so protected. If we tap into that because of an egoic desire to do something just for ourselves, then it's very difficult to work with this energy. Impossible, really. But when we work with that time, with the energy of that time, through an altruistic intent for the highest good of all beings and all life, then it really flows to us. And then we can start to awaken within us. And we're saying we're doing this because we wish to serve life. And the ancient Egyptian priests and priestesses, they were called the servants of Ma'at, which means the servants of truth, the servants of justice, the servants of divine order. Ma'at encompasses all of that. So they saw themselves as surrendering the ego to the divine self.
I think what you just said is so eloquent, and I think it speaks to so many things that people are starting to become more and more aware of. And I think it's surprising some of the quarters and the areas where the discussion of consciousness and so on is starting to come to be more of a topic and an area to look into. I mean, I was only just reading an incredible book by Dr. Tara Swart, who is a neuroscientist. You know, this is someone whose knowledge and understanding of the brain and how the brain works is exceptional. And she has recently written her own book about the signs in relation to her personal experiences after the death of her husband. And she makes so many incredible points that I think you touch on there, that you can see, again, like I was saying, that this is something more and more coming into so many different areas of discussion. But she points out that human beings don't have just five senses as we are led to believe, and instead we have 34 senses. 34. But yet so many of those aspects of what our brain can do has been switched off. We stop using them, we stop learning how to use them. And if we can awaken our brain, if we can fire up those parts of the brain, then what we can do, what we're able to do, it would be far more reaching than what people would consider to be ordinary kind of feats of the brain. And I think you can see that coming through and echoing through with what you're saying here. We're talking about a time where we don't have the trappings of the internet. We don't have the trappings of all these different things that we have that make our life easier, quote unquote, but in some ways have dulled some of those senses. We haven't had to use some of those senses. We haven't had to rely on ourselves and our brains and trust our instincts and our own observations and all of these senses. it's we've become part of a kind of a growing, evolving world that relies more and more on the senses of technology and what technology can do for us. And so that discussion that you just shared, the thoughts, your own personal experiences, I think is a fascinating one, and one that truly does need to be explored more, because I think to understand consciousness, the more we can understand that, I think the awakening, the possibilities there are pretty much endless then at that point.
Yeah, I really think so. And what one of the things that I have seen in my courses when I teach this work is, first of all, people rely so much on technology and the information from the outside that they do not trust their own inner voice. And this is something, it was the opposite in the golden times. It was the inner voice that spoke. Um, and we knew I have to go there, I have to be in that place because the inner voice told me to do that. And when I got there, I realized why. And we followed that inner voice, that instinct that maybe is part of the animals. The animals know what's happening on the earth. Um, if there's almost like an advanced warning, an instinct in the animals. Well, we had something like that. We had that inner voice that talked to us and enabled us to communicate with nature, which is very important, with the earth and also with each other, because we could feel what the other person was saying. It's not just what is spoken, it's what is unspoken. We could feel that incredible compassion for other people. We could have an understanding of what is going on with somebody, and how we can support them as a community, because everything happened as community was so important. And actually, if somebody was behaving, you could say, was unskillfully, let's say that somebody was behaving unskillfully, what the community said is that we failed this brother, we failed this sister. There's a reason why they are behaving in that way. Maybe we need to help them see what is happening with them. Why are they breaking the rule of math, the rule of justice? And um, and there was so much support. Well, nowadays, as like people are on their own, they're so much on their own, and they rely on technology for so many things, including even counseling. Somebody said to me that they have uh, the artificial intelligent counselor telling them what they could do in their life. So human communication can become, through our technology, can actually become very restricted. Well, it was the opposite during those times. Very much the communication was at all levels. And when I was a child, I remember it was primary one, primary two. I could feel and see what was happening for different kids. I knew, for example, for one kid, that he had trouble at home. I didn't know how I knew that, but I knew he was suffering. And then later on, that was confirmed when his parents were splitting up, and that was very rare. Where I grew up in Greece, that was like unheard of in those times. And but I could feel there is something wrong from one day to another. There is something wrong in this person's life, and I would feel all that compassion just going towards them. It was something that I pondered about afterwards, because that ability has come back bit by bit, not to the same level that I had as a child, but is coming back more and more through doing therapeutic work. So that's something that opened up again, and all these abilities we had in the golden times, we could just sense, feel, speak telepathically, even, and know, really know, without being told. We had this deep inner knowing.
And just kind of, again, helping to unpick the book a little bit for the listeners who are joining this conversation with us. You obviously talk about in the book how the Egyptian gods and goddesses are both these enlightened beings and these archetypes. Do you want to just help to unpack that for us? How should we understand these divine figures in a modern spiritual context?
Yes, thank you for that question, Michelle, because when we start to understand the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses, we start to understand ourselves. So, what the ancient Egyptians realized was that there are all these beings, you would call them gods and goddesses, but this is a modern word as well because they never worship them in the way that maybe we think of a god or a goddess. So these were teachers. I would say these were teachers, teachers of light with different qualities. And each person, they say, you also have a quality that maybe resonate with one of these beings. So, in some ways, the archetype is a good word. At the mental level, they are archetypes. At the spiritual level, they are beings of light. But an archetype is something that has the qualities that maybe are in perfect form. So, for example, let's say somebody is very motherly, loves children, loves to provide, loves to cook for people, loves to be motherly. Now, um, there is the archetype of the mother of unconditional love, which is a woman with her breast. Hathor is the English name, or Hathor in ancient Egypt. So from her breast, the milk flows in symbols of Ankh, which means eternal life. So she's the mother feeding all creation from her breast. She wears the cow horns because the cow gives everything to the people, the milk, the skin, the meat, so much is all giving to the people and supports human life. So she is this goddess of unconditional love, and in her temple the doors were always open, meaning everybody can go because the mother always keeps the door open for her children without any judgment. So somebody who is a bit like that, you could say in the human level, it's impossible to be completely unconditional love. We have some of the characteristics, but we are not, fully that. There's no such thing as perfect mother. But in the divine love, the divine aspect, that archetype exists. So what happens is we start to work with that archetype, and they start to find which is my archetype, which is my monad, if you like, where my soul came from. What am I expressing in my life? By knowing thyself, we find the answer. And they started to work with that energy so they can manifest that quality in their life. Because when we manifest what is in our soul, then we become so happy. If somebody really goes into their archetype and they manifest that and they work, whatever work they do, they bring that forward in their everyday life, then that is so fulfilling. You know, I was very much aligned to Goddess Isis from the beginning, and Isis is like a teacher. She opens the path through initiation, and I tried to do other things as my family advised. I became a town planner, and I liked being a town planner, but it wasn't as fulfilling as being a spiritual teacher. Now my heart really sings every day. I work so much, but I'm doing what is my archetype, what is really my inner nature. And so in ancient Egypt, you have different, they call them Neteru, different gods and goddesses with different qualities in perfect form. And they say, okay, try and work that to bring these qualities more and more into yourself. Let them awaken within you, from within you, because you are carrying the essence of that archetype, of that enlightened being. So it's almost like as if the essence of this enlightened being can awaken through you. And they had incredible rituals where people would be like playing the roles of these enlightened beings, of this Neteru. So they had these theaters, these dramas. And we think always that theater was invented in Greece. But in ancient Egypt, they were playing these theodramas uh, in order to awaken the, the essence of these enlightened beings within them. They would wear all the headdress, all the clothes, all wear the symbols of these beings, and they will read out the texts, the myths, as if the beings were there. So the priests and priestesses were being possessed, if you like, voluntarily by these enlightened beings.
So, is there a way then for someone to discover the god or the goddess or the archetype they were born with, almost like a spiritual counterpart or a guiding force?
Yes, I think so. I think this is something that we should try and do, and nobody can do it for us. Sometimes people say, "Can you tell me? Just tell me." And and I think, no, I can't take that responsibility for you because it's such a big thing. You have to know yourself. What is it that makes your heart sing? Who are you within? This is the big question. Who are you? And as you find and you know yourself, then the archetype becomes clear through the process of personal development. And it may take time. It may take time for us to know our archetype. We might have to do a lot of work depending where we are on our spiritual path. But at some point, they will like, yes, this is who I am. And this, if we are working with the ancient Egyptian spirituality and ritual, then it will become clear then that we will have sort of a resonance, an inkling, almost sometimes a visitation or a dream, omens appearing that say, this is your archetype, you need to work with this being. Um, and and that will become clear to us, but we have to open the door through the spiritual work, and it's only us who can do that.
And I think, again, in a very noisy, cluttered world where we're surrounded by technology and this kind of fast pace of life, sometimes we can overlook those messages that sometimes we receive via a dream or through meditation or through just our everyday, meanderings through life. These signs and things that come our way, we are sometimes oblivious to, or we can be. And so, I think there has to be that ability to listen, to observe, and to really take in what's happening around us and in our space. So I think you make some really valid points there about that this is a journey that is a personal one and is something that you are undertaking yourself. And like you said, it's about knowing yourself and being alert to the things in your world. So I think you make some really interesting and valid points there.
Thank you, Michelle. I think in the book I have also descriptions of the main gods and goddesses, and people may find that one of these descriptions fits them, and they might say, "Yeah, that actually resonates with me." But also through meditation and ritual, these were the two key elements that the ancient Egyptians practiced so much, and we still need to practice those. There are other things too, pilgrimages, for example. They used to do a lot of pilgrimages in the desert, where is the absence of life. In the desert, there is nothing. So there are no distractions. In our world, there are so many distractions. So at some point, they used to withdraw from life to be able to listen deeply to that voice within. And then they would come back to the Nile strip, which is like full of life. It's so busy, colors, life, nature, and everything. So you have these two contrasting places in Egypt, the desert and the Nile Valley. And I think, in our life now, we have so many distractions, but we have to find our own sanctuary too. and do the meditation work, the ritual, the spiritual work, because otherwise our conditioning will really keep us stuck.
And again, just kind of taking us into your experiences in the book. I mean, you write about accessing past lives during the golden time of Egypt. Do you want to just share a little bit about one of those experiences, one of those past life experiences there, and how this has shaped your path today?
Yes, sure. Yes. Of course, I can share. One of the things that I would like to say first is that the first time I tried to access the past lives, my past life in the golden times of Egypt, I was not successful because I did that based on the advice of a friend and mentor that I had at the time, and I didn't have a strong enough intention. Why did I want to do that? So the first time I tried to do that, I heard a voice that said, what is your reason for wishing to see these past lives?" And I said, because my friends, Fran, told me that's a good idea. And the door closed, and I had to dig deep within me what was the reason. And the reason that I came up with was that maybe there was something that I knew in that time that could help the world now. So then the door opened, and what I saw at the time, I saw that yes, it was the megalithic temples that were being built, like for example the temple at the Sphinx, which is very different to other more modern Egyptian temples. So the very very ancient temples, the temple at the Osirian, other places that were all big megalithic temples, and they had no decoration there, but all the information was engraved on the stone through energy. So these, I saw that we could really communicate with energy. We could read that was inscribed on the walls with energy, not actual words. And it was as if the whole place was just filled with light. My life was one of ritual. I saw that there was so much respect for the sacred, and the reason that I was able to feel that respect was because my heart was so big. At the time, I felt my heart opening that I have not experienced yet in this lifetime. And um, and I also felt how people work together as a team. So I saw how they were building those sites. They were building these pyramids, and they were building all of them. There was no real hierarchy. It's like if everybody has a job, everybody is so important. Nobody is more important than the other person. Everybody's life is so important. We take care of everybody, whether you're uh, the top engineer and the leader or manager, or the person who does the most menial job, that down to just putting the stones together, because everybody is important in this, to do the right thing. And I felt such care, such spirit of communication between the team. So I saw also something really interesting. I saw that uh, as I said, they were building things with energy. The energy was so important, the etheric energy. So I saw that they were building everything they built. They visualized first, all of them together, visualizing the same thing. So a whole team coming together as a circle, visualizing how they were going to build the pyramids, brick, not brick, but stone block by stone block. Everything is built by the projection of the mind, the spiritual energy that coming through the cosmos, through their hands. Everything is created in this etheric field, and then they build it in the physical plane. And the reason they do that is because they said that whatever they build with energy will last for millions of years. The physical maybe go, but the etheric side will be there for thousands of years, for millions of years. Actually, they called it the temples of millions of years. And when they did that was because they didn't just think of themselves at the time and their lifetime. They thought of the children of the future. They thought of us now. They said that at some point we will wake up again and we will need those structures. We will need those temples. We will need to be able to go back into that time of the light. So they built something that lasts. Their homes were made of brick, mud brick. Their homes are gone. Their palaces, whatever they had built, they're gone. But their temples and these energy structures are still there to last. Almost they wanted to last for as long as possible. Millions of years they were calling, meaning for eternity. And for everybody, for all those who come after them. So they're leaving us a legacy. And that's how they planned it. So I saw that, and that kind of made me mindful in some ways that some of us, maybe a lot of us, are answering a call when we feel attracted back to Egypt, that to go back to that light that exists there, that these temples and pyramids are still radiating, not just on the earth, but in a cosmic level, because what they create in Egypt is as above, so below. So the river Nile is the Milky Way, and the temples are the different constellations and stars. And they are like positioning themselves not just on the earth, that this is Egypt here on the whole of the earth's surface, but in the cosmos. So they are connecting to a much bigger picture that we connect today. And in some ways, what they left us is a gift for us to remember.
And something that you touched upon whilst you were, sharing your thoughts and your experiences there was that this is something that is all encompassing, that there is this connection between all people, of every social class, and there is no hierarchy. And one of the fascinating things that I found from the book was the fact that you share precisely that these initiations into these mysteries, they weren't hereditary, they weren't limited by social class. There is something very open and, again, available to all. And I suppose my question for you is, given that, what do you think the qualities or the skills were that were needed to become initiated and to start to walk that path?
Yes, I share that in the book because I got such a beautiful account of the initiation from one of my spirit guides who became eventually a high priest in the Karnak temple. So he is sharing with me his initiation process. And what he said was that he was very gifted. As a child, of course, he was very psychic. And he was, able to meditate, to see the enlightened beings. And he wanted to become a priest. He wanted to be an initiate. This was his, like from a child, he wanted that. But when eventually he goes to the temples, there is a 2-year sort of period where you find yourself. You receive an initiation, like a first initiation that is not very deep. And then you start to learn, work in the temple too, and stay in that environment and see if it is for you or not. And after 2 years, you can ask to be initiated. And he goes through a very important ritual, and the ritual is called the weighing of the heart. And now you will find that ritual in the Book of the Dead, because it's such an important ritual in the Egyptian mysteries. It's not just about death. It's actually initiation into the mysteries too. So in that ritual, what they do is that they decide if you are ready based on whether you have these qualities of access to the divine heart. Is it your ego that brings you here? Is it expectation? Because you think you have so many psychic gifts, so is that it? The most important thing is your compassion, the ability to serve others, the ability to listen to your inner voice and the wise voice instead of the ego mind. This is what the weighing of the heart is. Are you carrying a lot of burdens? That is your conscience clear? So what happens with him, what his story is that because of his gifts, because of his many psychic gifts, everybody says to him, "Oh, you're the top student. You will get it first time." But he had become a bit so reliant on his gifts and so sure of himself, really, that the ego had come in, and he tried 8 times, or I can't remember now, 8 or 9. I can't quite remember, but he tried many times, and every time was like, "Oh no, you didn't get it. Your heart was not as light as the feather. The ego mind needs more work. You really need to heal your ego more. You need to integrate your ego. You need to come from a more altruistic place instead of relying on your psychic gifts." And that was a big thing for him. But when it happens, how he becomes an initiate, during the initiation, he describes how he feels his position in the cosmos. That when he looks at the priestess of mud who was deciding, what he was going to do, whether he was going to be accepted or not, he looks into her eyes, and all he sees is the endless universe. And he knows that he is in divine order with life, that this is perfect. What is happening is perfect. This is the perfect time for him, and he's in the right place at the right time, and is all in divine order. And then he doesn't even look to see what the feather did. Did the feather and the papyrus, which was on the other scale, the papyrus with the drawing of the heart and his name, did they balance or not? But he's just overwhelmed by the vision that he has, that he's in divine order. So I think they had to make sure that if you were to become an initiate, if you were to walk through that initiation door, that you were coming from the right place, and you didn't hold that initiation as a label that, look, I'm an initiate, I'm special, like what happens today. An initiation is actually crossing a threshold. It's not the end of the road, it's the beginning of the journey. And if we look at that journey, if we look at the initiation as that I'm getting all these resources, it's like I'm meeting with my divine soul. I'm getting all these resources, this energy, this access to HEKA. HEKA means the power of creation, this access to that high vibrational energy. I'm doing this from the right place. Otherwise, the gifts are taken away. And the ancient Greeks also studied the ancient Egyptian mysteries. And where I was born in Thessaloniki, they have found statues of Horus and Isis and Osiris. And one of the statues, Horus is standing there with his finger on his mouth saying, "Silence. Do not speak. Do not say you're an initiate. Keep it to yourself, because otherwise the ego becomes too much. Try and keep this as your spiritual practice, not to, advertise out in the world, look at me, how special I am, I was chosen." That was their thinking.
Just thinking about the book, again, you share some of the myths from the pyramid text in the book. Do you have a favorite myth that you could share with the listeners?
Yes, in Sacred Mysticism of Egypt, I do share, the myths of the pyramid text, some of the myths and what they mean, because the ancient Egyptians had wrote the myths for us to again to remember. They wrote them in stone to make sure they're not forgotten, and put them in pyramids that were then completely, closed until we found them again. So one of the myths, and maybe one of the most well-known myths, is the journey of the soul, and that is the journey of Osiris. And Osiris symbolizes the golden times of Egypt, when we lived in our heart, when we were so connected. And he is, if you like, the good king. He's in sovereignty, and as a result, everybody prospers. The land prospers. There is enlightened government, and but he has this twin brother. This twin brother is everything Osiris is not. So this twin brother is Set, and Set is the manipulator, the liar, the corrupted mind, the jealous person. And then what the myth says is that Set kills Osiris. So his own brother kills him because he's so good, and the brother is so jealous. So in this myth, you can find so many parallels with our world, because this first era, the era of Osiris, as the ancient Egyptian called the golden times, they called it the era of Osiris, lasted for so long, when we were in our heart. We were so much in our heart. But we were also quite naive, because Osiris is not streetwise, if you like. He's very naive. He always forgives his brother. He's there for his brother, even though he sees that his brother is a liar and attempts to kill him more than one time. But eventually, then we come into Set, and that is the era we're going through now, because Set is the conditioned mind. Set is really this very hard time where we have the corruption ruling the world, the corrupted leaders, people who are there only for themselves. There's so many lies in our world, misuse of power, all of that is the era of Set, and then so much jealousy, hatred, all of that stuff. And then we come into Horus, and Horus is the son of Osiris that Isis brings forward. And in the myth, Horus is the new era. And what happens with Horus is that he has to battle Set, and that is an internal battle, because Horus is born in an era of corruption. Set is on the throne, and Horus has to almost like overcome Set, but it's really an inner battle within us. We have to overcome that corruption, that conditioning that is within us, and heal it. So in order to heal himself, Horus has to become enlightened. So in the myth, at the end, in the new era, he inaugurates this era by going through the enlightenment process, and he describes himself that he becomes so bright, so radiant, like the morning sun, the sun rising in the eastern horizon. And he says, I'm one with everything. This is the aspect of oneness. He says, Sothis, or Sirius, the Sirius star, is my sister. The morning star is my offspring. He's saying, the whole world is my family. So the way to come out of this corrupted state, the era of Set, is to heal the ego, to heal ourselves, which takes a lot of dedication and even an inner battle, and to become much more awakened, elevate our consciousness, reach the enlightenment state that we always have inside of us. Become that living light, which means that we are the light of spirit living in this human body.
So, do you think then that these stories still hold wisdom for us in today's world then?
I absolutely think so. I think so. I think they are speaking to us from thousands of years ago. And when we read the stories first, we say, okay, that's like a brother kills his brother, etc. And his son avenges the father. It's like a fairy tale. We think, okay, that's just like a fairy tale. But that's how it's like a metaphor. So the ancient Egyptians in the mystery school, what I have seen, what I remembered, was they studied the stories. The teacher will sit and talk about the story and describe the story as it was, this fairy tale. And then what will happen is we would meditate on that myth, saying, what is it? What is it speaking to us about? And people would basically come with different things, and they would have a debate and discuss what they got out of that story. And there are many layers after layers. And in ancient Egypt is very deep. So we see one thing, and behind what we see, there is something else. And actually, in one of the pyramids, the Pyramid of Unas, is where some of these myths and stories are inscribed in the walls. There is a very beautiful metaphor the way they did it. So basically, in that Pyramid of Unas, there is all the hieroglyphs of these stories of these texts. They call pyramid texts because they were found in 3 pyramids in Saqqara. One of them is one of these pyramids. And there are some sort of drawings on the wall as well, geometrical symbols that nobody knows what they mean. The archaeologists don't know what these pictures that they painted mean, because they're just more symbols and lines. But what happened was, an archaeologist was in the pyramid when there was a power cut. So the big fluorescent lights, they couldn't use them. It was a power cut. So he had a little torch in his key, and he switched that torch, and that was very subtle light. It wasn't a strong light. And he saw these geometrical symbols change. And what it appeared very clearly through the blue light of the torch was that what you have there that can only be seen with this particular light is the symbol of Horus, who is the spiritual warrior, overcoming Set, overcoming the conditioned mind and the basic nature that is symbolized as a monster uh, or as an animal. It's a bit like the image, in the Sanskrit, where you have Shiva dancing over, the body, the basic nature. And you can only see that if the light is like this very, very subtle light. And he showed us that this when I was in Egypt there in 2014, this director came down of the museum. He came down and he said, I want to show you this. And I found this by mistake. I didn't know it was there. Nobody had discovered it. But it was like these things, these synchronicities. Egypt is talking to us. At the right time, something opens up and we discover something new. So in the same way, in these myths, the way they appear is that we see one thing, but when we approach the same myth with a different light, we can see something behind it. And in that same myth, there is another meaning. Osiris is us as children. We are so open, so forgiving, so much in our heart, so naive too. And then we grow into Set as teenagers. The conditioned mind, we become more streetwise, suspicious, more thinking, all having all these thoughts, maybe all these emotions, guilt, jealousy, all these things that we maybe not have felt as much before. And then at some point, we wake up, if we are lucky, we are coming to that point where we think, actually, there is something more than the conditioned mind. There is the spirit, because Horus is the spirit in the body. And one of his names is Hor-An, which means the divine spirit in the body. So he is the spiritual warrior, and he is the one who awakens. So we are coming to that point that we say, well, the conditioned mind of Set is something that we need to heal. I can't keep going on like that. There is something more to life. And the way is through the spirit, through the spiritual work.
I had goosebumps listening to you just then, Fotoula. I mean, I think you're speaking with such passion and knowledge, but it's so enlightening, the things that you're sharing with us. I hope it's resonating with people listening, because I think there's something very, very connecting and with what you're saying, and it's so intriguing to hear you share your knowledge and your experiences. And my hope is that people listening who feel drawn to what you're saying are going to pick up your book and take a look at what you have to say and what you're sharing, and maybe this be the beginning of their own path, their own journey. And as I say, I hope that's something that resonates with people, that they do that, because you are so compelling and so passionate, and you're speaking with such empathy and openness that, as I say, I hope people are taking away from this, because certainly I am during our conversation. It's fascinating to hear your thoughts and your perspectives and your experiences.
Thank you so much, Michelle. You know, the book, I wrote the book with the help of my helping spirit. The Isis has been my helping spirit, for many, many years since the beginning of this life. And the book is written as a transmission of light, so it will meet people wherever they are. Some people are already, ahead in their journey. They have done so much work. The book will meet them, and for other people who are in the beginning of their journey, I think they will also find so many gems in that book, because I'm getting so many beautiful emails from people who are working with the book, and they are saying, I can only read 2 pages. It's almost as if that I have to kind of integrate what I have read, not at mental level, but at spiritual level. And then I'm ready, to move on. It's like I'm receiving the light directly from the book, and that is what I had tried to do, and we had tried to do with my helping spirit, is to almost like, may this book may not give you all the answers, because nothing is can do that, but help you walk your spiritual path in your own way, and open the doors um, of 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 your path for you to cross that threshold and really feel the support, the love, and the grace that is holding you. Your soul is not here by accident. You have incarnated in this body at this time for a specific reason, and it is that you are the gift to life, and life is a gift back to you. And when we start to understand that and live that in our life, it's not just something in the mind, but becomes our reality, then we can really transform the way that we are in the world and make the world a better place as well.
And just kind of following on from that, would you have any advice for people listening in terms of where they should start with your book, or where they should go maybe after they've read your book? Are there suggestions for further teachings or recommendations that you would suggest?
Yes, thank you very much, Michelle. So, uh, the I think the book is wonderful. If you can read the book and start from the beginning, you might be tempted to go to the last chapter of initiation, but the book is a path, is a journey. So, um, of course, some parts may resonate more than others, but at least I would say read the whole book once and then focus on what feels more aligned with you. And if you wish, I am teaching webinars once a month online on the introduction to the ancient Egyptian mysteries. And I do include a spiritual practice as well. That is really the experience of this work. There will be information on the teachings, the esoteric teachings, of course. I will try and analyze that for our modern times. But also the spiritual work is an experiential path. How does it feel for us? What does it open for us? And then for those people who wish to walk the path of the initiate, and that involves maybe a little bit more work for those who are saying, yes, I can walk that now. I can fit spiritual practice and spiritual work in my everyday life. I teach the path of the living light. It's called the 7 Gates of Awareness. And that is this in 2026. The first course of that is in March, in person in Glasgow, if you are in the UK, or online in April. And that can be a path of your life, because it's very rich. There's so much to it. I have folders and folders, and it's incredible information, but it's very experiential. And my helping spirit, Isis, says that for her, the information is not so important but the spiritual practice, the rituals, the meditations, the chants, um, the way of creating ceremony is the most important thing, is what really helps us walk our path. So that is also available as well. And I have been teaching that since Isis came to me in 2006 and say, "Do you wish to become my teacher as you were in other lifetimes?" And of course, I said yes, not realizing how much work that involves. But it has been so beautiful to do. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Did you ever question that connection? Just thinking about what you were just sharing there, this encounter that you had back in 2006, where you were given these teachings that you obviously now share and you've just mentioned there. Did you ever question or doubt that connection?
I didn't doubt Isis. I didn't doubt the teachings. I doubted myself. I very much doubted myself. I thought, who do you think I am to give me all these teachings? I'm just, I'm not that, a teacher, or I'm just me. I really doubted myself. And I kept asking her, why did you choose me? If you like, why did you come to me and ask me this question? And she said, it's because of my heart. And I say that to people when they come and they think, oh, how can we do this? This feels so important, so sacred. And I say, it's because of your heart that you're called here. So it's very much something that I doubted in the beginning. I didn't, she gave me the teachings. I said yes initially, and then she gave me the teachings, and she has been giving me the teachings. It's not ended yet. I have about 40% of all that is to come. So I still very much work with her and bring it forward. So when she gave me these teachings, after that said, go and teach. I thought, oh my God, where do I start? I said, I can't do it. I can't do it. And she really helped, because people who came in that first year were people who saw me in a dream or met me and something told them to ask me about Isis. In the beginning, I was saying, I know nothing about Isis. Why don't you go and buy a book? Maybe somebody else knows more. And the people were going, yeah, maybe. But no, but that's not what I'm asking. And eventually, after it happened 3 times, I kind of plucked the courage to say, yes, I know why you're asking me. This is what I have been doing. And people said, okay, when can I come and you can teach me? And I thought, oh my God, now what do I do now? So eventually, in this first year, everything came to me. But after that, I then got insurance for these courses, make sure I could certify people that they have done the courses, brought them into our world, and started teaching properly. Then eventually, me and my colleague Fee Sutherland, and I created the IC School of Holistic Health, and we have been teaching together for many years now. So I doubted myself, not the connection, not ISIS, because the connection was so strong. But yeah, that's what happened.
But I think that message that you just shared is an important one, because I think, again, for anyone who's listening, for for which this conversation resonates, they may have experienced their own self-doubt. And I think, sometimes we are our own worst enemy, aren't we, in terms of the doubts that creep in that we can listen to stronger than that voice that's coming from inside of us that tells us those important things that we can do this. We, we are on the right path, to trust that instinct that we have, that inner voice. Sometimes our head voice gets in the way rather than the voice that's coming from deep within our heart. And so I think to hear that message from you is an important one for anyone who needs to hear that, to listen to that voice that comes deep from within their heart rather than that internal voice in their head that sometimes clouds our judgment, clouds our thoughts, makes us take a different path for a little while. Um, sometimes then that inner voice that comes from within our heart pulls us back to something. And I think it's why so often when I've spoken to people who are on a spiritual path or on a particular journey that they're of something that they are really interested and passionate about, oftentimes, when I've spoken to them, you hear how something was truly part of their experience. They were engaged and passionate with it. And then for a little while they stepped away from it only to be drawn back in because again it was something calling them from deep within themselves that they needed to do that. And so I think, as I said, I think everything you just said there is something that I would imagine that would resonate with a lot of people because I think it's something at some point or another most of us will have felt some kind of self-doubt. So I think it's an important message. So thank you for sharing that one, Fotoula.
You're so welcome, Michelle. And I think, looking back, I think that self doubt that was there was good. It never stopped me. And I got, as I said, a lot of help, a lot of help. The ISIS wanted me to do that, and people kept coming without knowing anything about these teachings. But that I got a lot of help, but I could have said no, and that would have been really, really such a shame. But I think somehow that journey of myself, going over that self-doubt of almost like saying yes after doubting myself, is also a part of our journey of evolution. We all will have something to heal through our spiritual path. Our stuff will come up in whatever form that's whether it's self-doubt, whether it's self-sabotage, whatever that is, it can come up, and it's healthy that it comes up, and is part of the journey. And now when we overcome it, we think, yes, I have done something. I have crossed that threshold. And initiation is part of that, because my initiation that happened in the Great Pyramid was full of fear. I felt such fear going inside the Great Pyramid. But after the initiation, all these gifts came to me. So it is like the path of the initiate takes also a little bit of courage, but we are so supported. And I want to say that this is that we are supported when we are growing.
And something that you mentioned earlier, I mean, you spoke about going on pilgrimages, going into places where you can truly experience just the vast kind of knowledge and awakenings and ability to disconnect from the huge amount of distractions, but to go to these sacred places. And you've obviously guided pilgrimages to Egypt yourself for many years. How do you decide personally, which of those sacred sites to include as part of those journeys? What kind of transformation can people expect to have from joining such a journey like that?
So to go to Egypt for me, the way it happens is an invitation. So I'm invited by Isis. I have a dream, and it comes, all of a sudden, whenever it comes, I have this dream that Isis appears in my dream with my guides, and they say, right, you have to go to Egypt. You're going at that time. It's usually equinoxes, solstices, that kind of time. And full moon seems to play a role of when we are there. And she says, you will have to go there and there and there. This is how she shows me the whole journey, the whole trip, where we start. Sometimes we start from the pyramids up in Cairo. Other times we start in Luxor, and we don't go first to the Philae temple in the south in Aswan, and then we come up the Nile and we go to Abydos and other places there, and we finish with the pyramids. So she will show me the whole thing, and then she will say there will be so many people. She gives me the number of people. Go and organize this trip. And then I organize it. I speak to the people in Egypt, and then I advertise it, and then I see who of the initiates is available and they can come, because for us to go and do this very deep work, it's not spiritual tourism. It's actually quite intense. We do ceremonies, we do rituals, we do meditation. It's a path of personal development and spiritual work. So people need to have done some work with me before, and they have to have received the initiation. So I'm not explaining everything from the beginning. We already have, all of us, some basic knowledge of the mysteries, and then we go there and go deeper into in the place where the mysteries were practiced thousands of years ago. And what can happen is, I have seen people uh, who have never felt the energy, or were never able to meditate, or they couldn't chant anything because they didn't like their voice, or they didn't know they had a healing voice. They didn't know they had a healing gift. I've seen people almost like reclaiming themselves in Egypt. Also, I have seen people going through very, very deep healing from lifetimes ago that happened in Egypt in different sites. And I talk about some of that in the book. I have some stories which people gave me permission to explain, to say this is what can happen. And people can even go through a catharsis because they are ready. They have said, there's something I've been battling with for a long time. And then in Egypt, almost like the penny drops and everything opens, and they go through a catharsis in both mind and body. And then they are like the light is then so much more present. And all this is there open for us. The only thing that can stop us is, I think, the ego, because I have seen, when we are receiving so much, when we are accessing our gifts, it's so tempting for the mind to say, "Oh, look who I am now." The pendulum swings in the opposite direction, and the ego that felt so small now feels so great. And then that's when the gift is withdrawn, the energy is withdrawn, because this energy only works from the heart and the highest good. So you can also lose everything. But the pilgrimage to Egypt is an amazing thing. The doors open when we go there, and we are able to really practice these teachings in a very deep and beautiful way. There are many tears of grace in our group, many, a lot of hugs, a lot of love, a lot of good times too, and a lot of teamwork and connection. And Egypt is so beautiful, and the people are so beautiful too, and we're so supported. So it's a wonderful thing to do. I don't know when the next pilgrimage is. I have not received the dream yet. If I had the dream, I would go there tomorrow, because I love in Egypt. I love the temples, and I love the work we do there. But until that time, I cannot say when it will be the next trip. The last trip was 2019. And then, of course, 2020 was COVID and lockdowns and everything else. So I'm hoping there might be and another trip in 2027, but I haven't had the dream yet, so I cannot confirm.
And again, in the book, in Sacred Mysticism of Egypt, you refer to this etheric protection, especially when you're visiting tombs. I was just wondering if you visited the Valley of the Kings and, what you felt there.
So, what happened in ancient times, what I have seen, and describe a little bit of that in Sacred Mysticism of Egypt. What happened was the tombs were, of course, filled with gold and artifacts and lots of material stuff. So, at some point in you know. Uh, as history progressed, what happened is the priests who were supposed to safeguard these tombs, and of course they had uh, all the knowledge of where these tombs were in the Valley of the Kings because they were responsible of looking after them. So the priests themselves decided to create a restoration project, we'll call it now, and go to the tombs and really strip all the wealth from the tombs. And even the mummies of the pharaohs were not respected. So eventually, somebody tried to safeguard the mummies, and they got them all together and put them all in one shaft, and so that at least the bodies of these rulers of these people were not further damaged. But a lot of the tombs were opened by the priests themselves, and they took the gold that was there. Now, what happened before that was that when they constructed the tombs, the priesthood put etheric protection on the tomb. So if you went there, you could maybe carry a curse afterwards in your body, you could carry etheric imprints in your body. So there was like, don't go there. There is, that etheric protection. But in order for the priests to go and take the gold, they took that etheric protection away. So, so they knew how to do that. There is, though, still the aura of that psychic protection of the tombs there. There is something there that, if people go and they're open, um, they might feel something is not quite right. So I don't take groups in the Valley of the Kings. Just safety is first. Myself, I have been called to go there and do some work, etheric work, to clear something that may have been in the tombs that was placed there in later times when the Greeks conquered Egypt, when Alexander the Great and then his generals, the Ptolemaic kings and queens, they rule Egypt. These tombs are open. People can go and you can find the Greek writing in the tombs that basically say so and so had been here. I have been here. It's like the Greek graffiti. So people visited these tombs even in ancient times, but at some point they started to use them for rituals. And some of the rituals that have happened there were not of the light. So I have been called to go myself, or with experienced people who have been on this path for many years and they know what they're doing, to go and heal what has happened before. And I have done that only when invited. I haven't gone there as a tourist. And I would say that many people might be safe because we all have an etheric protection around us. But, just to be on the safe side, I don't take groups in the Valley of the Kings.
Do you have a favorite site in Egypt?
Well, I have, many sites. Every temple gives you something different. But you know, ah, what can I say? One of my favorite places is, of course, the Philae Temple. Now, it's not in its original place, but the energy is still there. The same for Abu Simbel. It's not, of course, in the original place, but it's almost like the energy, the etheric energy is still there. So the Philae Temple is a very special temple for me. It's a temple of Isis, but the energy is very clear. It's very beautiful. And I think if people have the chance to go and find a quiet space and meditate or sit in that area, they might receive a lot of energy, a lot of light, and even have this inner voice speaking to them, because it's very peaceful. So when we are going into a place of such high vibrational energy, what happens is our monkey mind, our conditioned mind, stops talking. We come into that space of peace and deep connection, and that's when we can access the inner voice. So I would say the Philae temple, the temple of Isis, temple of love. Philae means love in ancient Greek. Is a very beautiful place to go. And I'm saying, obviously Philae and ancient Greek, because by the time when the temple was built, it was the Greek rulers, uh, the Ptolemaic queens, king and queens, who were responsible for that temple. And you will see Cleopatra there too. But apart from that, it's a very, very beautiful place on an island in the middle of the Nile. It's a wonderful place. If you want to do more serious work, more deep work, there are two temples I would recommend. One is Karnak, and that is quite a focused place, like a really serious place. It's like very, very, very strong energy. It's very grounding, and almost like requires a lot of respect. But another temple which is very much alive and really beams the energy, you can really connect there, but also incredibly sacred and requires a lot of respect, is Abydos. If you can go and spend some time in Abydos, is an amazing temple. Both the temple of Seti the First, which is the more modern one, and the Osirian temple, which is the oldest, which is from the golden times.
Earlier, you touched on something that I think really comes through very strongly in the book, which is this connection, this importance that the astral connection has to the Egyptian deities. I mean, in the book, you mention Isis with Sirius and Osiris with with Orion's belt. Sorry. Um, why do you think these star connections are so important for our human journey?
So the Sirius star in ancient Egypt, they talk about the energy of the Sirius star is one which is like a portal of light that beams energy to the earth. Of course, it's connected to Isis, and therefore is connected to our journey of awakening. So connecting with the energy of this star enables us to raise our consciousness. So this is assisting us. This is helping us to access our own light. It's not like it's bringing more light to us. It just enables us to have those moments of realization, and through the energy. The energy is very strong coming from the Sirius star, and it's an aid of elevating our consciousness. But this is while we are alive, and most of that work is done in ancient Egypt in the temples of the which are located at the eastern side of the Nile. So in the West Bank, you have the temples of where they practice the Osirian mysteries, where they practice the mysteries of death. And death is a great door for awakening. So they actually reenact their own death, because they know it's a bit like having a near death experience. They know that when we die, our spirit leaves our body, and our spirit is freed from the body, so our awareness grows. And because our spirit is that divine essence, and we start to remember that again. So the West Bank, the temples there, the tombs, everything is all orientated towards the Orion belt. And that energy is the energy that we meet when we die. They said you meet Osiris again. you meet that energy from the Orion portal that enables you to raise your consciousness even more, but to such a degree that if we receive that energy while living, we could, it would be too much for most people. We wouldn't be able to hold it. We might actually become insane because it's far too much light. It's like having this huge awakened moment that can take us into crisis. But the ancient Egyptian mystics practiced this with so much respect and so much preparation. And they wanted to bring the energy of the Orion portal because they said we don't have to wait until we die. We can be a spirit in the body while we are living. And that was what they tried to do. So these two portals are very important, and the temples, even the temples of the Eastern Bank, the East Bank, they still have the chapels to Orion and Osiris, but the main focus is Isis.
It's been such a privilege to chat with you. I mean, it's as I say, it's been really enlightening, and I hope that people listening take from this conversation something that resonate with them, and I hope they find you and grab a copy of your book. Do you want to just finish by telling the listeners maybe the best place to get a copy of Sacred Mysticism of Egypt, and maybe how best they can connect with you if they want to dive deeper into this work?
Thank you. Yes, of course. I would be very happy if people would like to purchase the book. It is, as I said, a transmission of light, and I hope it helps you on the spiritual path, the path of your soul, wherever you are. And you can purchase the book either in an ebook format or a paperback from booksellers, online, like any of the online booksellers, Amazon, etc. You can get the book, or you can also order it from other places. Like in the UK, Waterstones, and some also independent places. For example, Watkins in London, Atlantis Bookshop, they actually store the book. And even here in Glasgow, if you're listening in my hometown, Opal Moon, that's another independent bookshop that stores the book. So, so it's widely available. And then if you wanted to continue working on the ancient Egyptian mysteries, and they inspire you and they guide you, then by all means go onto the website, the Isis School of Holistic Health.com, all one word, and you will find a section there about the work on the ancient Egyptian mysteries. You will find there is so much in the website. You might say, where do I start? But if you're looking for more history of what happened in ancient Egypt and a spiritual practice to start introducing yourself and go deeper, then the webinars are really good. Or if you want to take initiation, then go and look at the courses. There's also other sections in the website that you might find interesting: shamanism and rays of divine consciousness, past life regression. There's so much I do. As I said in the beginning, there are so many facets in my work, and I embody all these paths and bring them together. If you have questions, I would be very happy to receive an email from you. Also, subscribe to our newsletter that goes out once a month, that includes a channeled message from Isis, and she writes through me about our times now. The newsletter is free. You don't have to buy anything. There is also a free transmission of the ancient Egyptian etheric energy called transmission, the Isis transmission that happens on Wednesdays. If you wish to receive and feel what this is like, what is this etheric energy we've been talking about, and see how you feel. So the transmissions are free as well. So I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Michelle, for this wonderful podcast. Honestly, the pleasure and honor is all mine. I loved our conversation and everything you shared. And thank you so much for all your insights too, and all your sharings. thank you to all the listeners. It was a privilege to speak about what is in my heart, and I hope some of it resonated with you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fotoula, and I will say goodbye to everybody listening. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. You can follow us on social media for updates and more intriguing stories. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your mind curious.